Hello, welcome to Language Arts with Mrs. Tucker. This week in Language Arts, we're going to be covering the um, the standard RI and RL 6.4. That is to determine the meaning of words and phrases as they're used in a text, including figurative, connotative, and technical meanings. We're going to use the Ready Book to help us with this lesson today. Think about the lyrics to your favorite song. What pictures or images do they bring to mind? How do the words make you feel? Writers use words in different ways depending on their purpose. They might use words with a figurative meaning that is different from their literal or usual meaning. They might use words with a technical meaning when writing about a specific subject area. Like music. Sometimes writers choose words with a positive or a negative connotation, or a connotative meaning to show how they feel about the topic. You can figure out an author's intended meaning by thinking about the word's context, or the text that comes before and after it. We have used the word context a lot whenever we talk about how to figure out the meaning of a word. You guys have told me yourself to look for context clues. And that is just what you're doing whenever you are looking for context clues. You're looking at the text that comes before or after a word. Look at the picture below. We're going to actually use this picture to help us practice this skill. So we have a situation happening here where the boy says, "This music is intense." And you can see that he seems to be having a good time at this concert. And we have a girl, and she says, "This music is ear-splitting." And I can tell from my context clues based on her face and her hands that she is not having a good time. So the word intense and the word ear-splitting, they both are ways to say that something is loud, but intense has a connotation of a positive feeling, and ear-splitting's connotation is negative. They have similar meanings, but they have different connotations. Let's think about the word ear splitting. Are her ears literally splitting? No, her ears are not literally splitting. It just means that she doesn't like what she's hearing, and it makes her feel like her ears are splitting, but not really. It's a figurative expression. It's just like an exaggeration that's used to describe something that is unpleasantly loud. All right, so knowing the literal meaning of a word or a phrase is not always enough. It's also a good idea to pay attention to the context in which that word or phrase appears. Context will help you figure out if the author's using a word for its technical, connotative, or figurative meaning. Here in this example, we got to talk about connotation as well as a figurative meaning of a word. All right, we're going to keep practicing by reading a story about a famous musician named Chuck Berry. This is called the father of rock and roll. Rock musicians can trace their roots back to one individual, Chuck Berry. He rose to stardom in the 1950s with music featuring driving beats and catchy guitar riffs, short series of notes that repeat throughout a song. Berry's groundbreaking sound combined rhythm and blues with country music. As a guitarist, he was known for his phrasing. Aerosmith's guitarist Joe Perry describes the way Berry grouped notes into quick bursts as that double note stop where you get the two notes bending against each other and they make that rock and roll sound. Berry's clever lyrics about high school and dancing also won over teenage audiences. The words to his songs told the stories of their generation. "Everything I wrote about wasn't about me, but about the people listening," said Berry. So we want to explore the question, what does the author mean when she says that Chuck Berry was known for phrasing? Okay, so I'm going to use some context clues to help me out. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight the part of the text that's actually going to help me find this answer. I'd also like to point out that I'm going to use a little bit of background knowledge. I know that a phrase in language arts, when I tell you to give me a word or a phrase, that a phrase means more than one word. It means words that are grouped together to mean something. So I can use that, and then I can do a little bit of reading into context clues. So we're trying to figure out what this word phrasing means. If I look a little bit after that, I can read that Aerosmith's guitarist Joe Perry describes the way Barry grouped notes. Well, that sounds similar to my phrase in language arts. Group notes into quick bursts as that double note stop, where you get the two notes bending against each other, and they make that rock and roll sound. So what I underlined are my context clues to help me know what phrasing means. So whenever you do your work this week, you're going to get a choice board. And on your choice board, there's you can get a similar graphic organizer that looks like this, but there's one more column in it, and you're going to actually write the definition of the word, which we're going to do down here. So it's basically the same thing as this right here. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So my example, I would literally put a quote from the book or from an article. If you choose to read an article, I'm going to give you lots of articles that, lots of resources where you could choose an article. But I'm looking for the meaning of the word phrasing. My context clues would be quotations that I can get from the text. Okay, so if let me actually try a little bit better. So if I were to write some of those context clues, then I could put, I don't have to write the whole sentence, but I could put the part where it says grouped notes into quick bursts. As that double note stop. And then I could also put in the part where it says two notes bending together. Okay, so this helps me know if I were going to write a definition without looking up phrasing on Google, because that's not really, that is a resource that you could use, but we're really trying to work towards figuring out what words mean using the text around the words, and just using our own background knowledge and clues that the author gives us. So I'm going to make up a definition, and I could say phrasing means, or I'm gonna say phrasing is when a musician groups notes together to make a particular sound. Okay, so see what I did? I used my context clues after the word phrasing. It could be before, it might be before, but in this case it's after. I filled out my clues and then I came up with the definition. So you're going to do that this week as well in your book or your article. Let's keep reading about Chuck Berry, and we're going to actually practice answering an RI 6.4 kind of question. Berry also revolutionized guitar showmanship with his signature duck walk. It involved playing guitar while squatting and moving forward. One leg would swing back and forth in the air while he hopped on the other. Chuck Berry has shined a light on many rock stars' paths. Even the Beatles, John Lennon credited Berry's sound and style. He said if you try to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry. All right, so my question down here says, based on the text, which of the following is closest to the figurative meaning of the phrase, shined a light on many rock stars' paths? Okay, so I'm going to actually use the same skill that I used earlier. And you can see right here that shined a light on many rock star paths is here. But I'm going to actually need to focus a little bit on the sentence after that. It says, even the Beatles, John Lennon credited Berry's sound and style. So I'm going to actually use some of this to help me out. Okay, so what I'm going to do to answer this question is I'm going to use this sentence right here that says Chuck Berry shined a light on many rock stars' paths and think about how John Lennon credited his sound and his style. Because John Lennon was very famous as well, and he came after Chuck Berry. So I'm guessing he is used as an example because Chuck Berry shined a light on rock stars such as Lennon's paths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the sentence with Chuck Berry, and I'm going to actually fill in what it says on A, B, C, and D to figure out the best answer. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see. So, which of the following is closest to the figurative meaning of the phrase shine a light on many rock stars' paths? So let's practice. Chuck Berry, so if I start with A, Chuck Berry made it possible for musicians to play rock and roll for a living. I don't really think that's correct. There's nowhere in there that really says that he made it possible for them. He was a good example, but he didn't necessarily make it possible for them. Let's try B. Chuck Berry drew attention to the talents of other rock musicians, making them famous. Well, I don't know then here that it talks about him drawing attention to other people's talents. This article is mostly about how other people drew attention to Chuck Berry's talents. So that one's kind of backwards. So that's not really the correct answer. Let's look at C. Chuck Berry helped musicians learn their craft by studying his songwriting and performing. Well, that sounds really, really similar. If I think about songwriting and performing, and if I think about John Lennon crediting his sound and his style, well, that sounds similar to helping musicians learn their craft by studying songwriting. Sound and songwriting, style and performing are kind of like an analogy to each other. So let's call that a maybe and then look at D. Chuck Berry exposed the secrets of rock musicians in the music business. This article didn't really talk about exposing any secrets, so that's not the correct answer either. This is the best choice right here because of our context clues of how John Lennon credited the sound and style. And Chuck Berry shined a light on many rock stars' paths, and one of those rock stars is John Lennon. Okay, so that context helped me figure out the answer. Do you guys see how I did that? You can, and I did give you the hint to substitute each choice for the phrase. So if you come across a question like that, you can practice doing it just the same way. You're going to actually have a chance to practice this with the rest of the Ready book. You guys have access to this on your lesson plan for the week. I've given you everything you need for the week, and so you can work at your own pace. But you're going to actually finish this Ready book lesson by reading 2 articles. I've also given you a Google document, so you'll read Evolution of the Guitar, and I would like to just point out that you should definitely pay attention to these side things. These give you some clues on how to best read this to find your answers on your questions. So don't ignore the column on the left. Okay, so you'll read Evolution of the Guitar, and there are 3 questions, and they give you hints over here to help you. If you'll fill these out in the Google Doc, because you may just want to spend a few minutes on one article, but not all the articles at one time. You have 2 articles here, and if you will do one, fill it out in the Google Doc, it's going to help you a whole lot because you're going to actually fill the answers out in Google Forms. And the reason I gave you the doc is in case you don't remember the form doesn't save your answer if you have to leave and come back. So you don't want to waste your time. But what you can do is if you fill out in the Google Doc, you can just copy and paste what you type in for number 3. Just copy and paste it straight into the Google form for number 3 for that one. Then you'll read The Power of Music, which is a little bit longer. It is 7 paragraphs. It's not too long, but there are 5 questions with this one. So answer 1 through 4 are multiple choice, and then number 5 is another multiple choice. If you will submit all of these and submit the Google form, and this is going to be due Wednesday, because this week we're going to be meeting in Zoom on Monday morning, and you should have already listened to this recording by the time we meet Monday morning, and then we're going to meet again on Thursday. And this is one of the things that we're going to talk about whenever we meet on Thursday. So you're going to meet with me on Monday morning at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or 11 o'clock, depending on what block you're in. Remember, first block, second block, third block. We're going to meet again on Thursday. So you're going to need to have this done by Wednesday at the end of the day, before midnight, so that I can grade it and get it back to you on Thursday. The other thing I'd like you to have done by Wednesday is the Common Lit. But I'm just going to ask you to work on Common Lit on Wednesday instead of working on reading your book on Wednesday. So Wednesday, you're going to work on Common Lit instead of reading your book. Okay, but we'll talk more about everything that you're going to do Monday morning at 10 o'clock, 10:30, or 11, depending on your block. And then we'll keep going with our week. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on Zoom Monday morning.